Hello everyone. In today's chess video, we will focus on the scholar's mate trap. As you can see, we are starting with the black pieces. Our goal is not only to defend against white's attack, but also to turn their own trap against them and launch a strong counter attack. This is a very famous trap and is commonly seen among players rated roughly between 1000 to 1500. The trap begins when the white plays e4 and we respond with e5. After this, white usually develops their bishop to c4, targeting the weak f7 pawn. We normally develop our knight to c6 and then white brings out its queen to f3. With the bishop and the queen aiming at the f7 square, white is trying to create a scholar's mate threat. If f7 falls, our king can come under serious danger and even get checkmated. But in this video, you will learn how to defend this position correctly and also how to set a trap for white, making it difficult for them to continue. So after queen to f3, white is clearly targeting our f7 pawn. The most defensive move is to play knight to f6, protecting the f7 pawn. This is the move the most beginners choose, and after that white usually develops their knight to c2 and the game continues. However, today we want to learn something more aggressive and tactical. So we will not play knight to f6, but we start off the trap by playing pawn to f5. By pushing this pawn, white can no longer capture the f7 pawn because the pawn has moved forward. Now white has two main choices. They can either capture with the queen or with the pawn. Let's look at both options one by one. First, let's examine queen takes on f5, which looks logical because white keeps the pressure on the f7 square with the checkmating idea. Now we play pawn to d5, and this pawn we captured by the pawn and the bishop both, but most opponents do not realize that by pushing our d pawn we have opened the diagonal for the bishop, and this allows our bishop to capture the queen. Many players overlook this idea, their queen gets trapped, and from there we can easily win this game. However, some stronger opponents may notice this open diagonal and try to save their queen. But you can see clearly that after playing d5, we are attacking both their bishop and the queen. So it becomes very difficult for the white to defend both. One possible idea they may find is queen to h5 check. But giving the check doesn't help them because we calmly play g6 and again the threat remains the same. We are still attacking both the bishop and the queen. They cannot capture our e pawn because it is defended by the knight. So most likely white will retreat back to e2, hoping that they can capture the pawn back when we capture their bishop, and by this they can take that pawn with the queen and at least gain 2 pawns for the bishop. But here comes the surprise move, knight to d4. This move attacks the queen again and also targets the c2 square, creating strong pressure on the king and the rook. White cannot defend the queen to e3 because this will allow the royal fork against the king, queen and the rook. So the queen usually goes to d3. Now we capture the bishop by our pawn, attacking the queen again. The queen can take the pawn, and once again we chase the queen by playing bishop to e6. The bishop is protected by the knight, so king cannot take it. This clearly shows why scholar's mate is not played by the strong players. Bringing the queen out early violates opening principles. While we are developing our pieces and gaining tempo, white is only running around with their queen. From here, the most common move is queen to a4 check, giving the check and also avoiding the fork to the queen, king and rook by the knight. From here, we once again gain tempo by playing pawn to b5 and attacking the queen. The queen cannot take this pawn because it is defended by the knight. So now these all the squares are covered and the queen has left with only two squares, that is a5 and a6. Let's see one by one. If they come to a6 directly, we have a move bishop to c8 and attacking this queen. So the queen has to come to this square, that is a5. Either they come first or after this move. So when they come here, we have a brilliant sacrifice of our bishop, that is bishop to b4, and by this the queen has been trapped and the queen is left with only one option, that is to take the bishop. And once they take this bishop, we have this most awaited royal fork waiting, and now the queen, king and rook are forked, and this royal fork ends when the king moves and we simply say goodbye to the queen. Now let's come back to the position after f5. As I mentioned earlier, white has two options to take with the queen or the pawn. We have already seen what happens when the queen takes, and now we will explore options when the pawn takes. We also have an option when in one of the moves, this is the second common trap, that bishop takes the knight, and then what happens. But here we will focus what happens once the pawn takes. Here we have to remember the key move, that is knight to f6. By this move, what we are doing is protecting our h5 square by the knight, because this can create trouble when the queen comes here, as then we will not be able to forward this pawn because this will be taken by the pawn and again the attacking threat remains. So after playing pawn to f6, the another benefit is that we can also play d5 later, because now this square will be covered by two pieces, defended by two pieces, as two pieces are attacking this. Usually after this, white continues by developing their dark squared bishop and pushing their pawn to d3, but instead of playing slowly, we immediately start attacking and creating threats. We attack white's queen by playing knight to d4. Once again, this move threatens c2 square and threatening the fork for the king and the rook. So the queen is forced to retreat to d1. Now we continue our development by playing pawn to d5, threatening this bishop, and this bishop has to retreat, and after it goes back, we can take away their f5 pawn, and we have developed a lot, and most of the white's pieces are on the 8th rank, that is the first rank from their side. However, in practical games, white does not play passively like this. Their original idea behind scholar's mate is aggressive. They want to attack f7 quickly. So instead, they play g4, trying to chase away our knight and prepare for checkmating idea with queen to h5. But we are not here to defend. We are here to attack. So we once again play knight to d4, threatening the queen and also threatening the c2 square fork. The queen is forced to retreat to d1, where it is protecting both the g4 square and the c2 pawn. From here, the normal pawn to d5 is not effective. So instead, we play b5. And why this is aggressive? Because this pawn is covered by the knight, so bishop cannot take it and it has to retreat back. And when it goes back, we can develop our bishop to b7 and also threaten this rook. Now knight to f3 is not effective because this square is covered by the knight and the rook. So instead they will play pawn forward, and here we have a brilliant sacrifice by our knight, that is knight takes on g4. And now when they take our knight, we can simply capture their rook, but we have even got a better plan, that is queen to h4 check, and by this check, this square is covered by the knight, so the king has to move to f1, and by this they have lost their castling rights, but we also have gained the rook. But we will not take this route right away, but instead we will play a more aggressive move, that is bishop to c5, and by this their rook is still hanging and they cannot do much. So our white plays, there are not much options left because this square is covered, this square is covered, this square is covered. Our bishop are also very active, so they are not left with much things to do. If they try to develop their bishop, we can simply take their bishop, and whatever pawn they take our knight, this is checkmate. White gets trapped in their own scholar's mate idea. So that's the wrap up for today's lesson. If you found this trap useful, make sure to practice it in your games. In part 2, we will explore another important continuation when white plays bishop takes on g8 and how to punish it correctly. Don't forget to like, subscribe and stay tuned for next videos. See you soon. Goodbye.